of a hard few days, so it's nice to be able to kind of share online and be able to just talk and share those stories and those songs and really connect with people. Even though we're at a distance, it's still really nice to be able to share, because I think when we share, that's truly when we connect. And so happy Tuesday, the 26th. Oh my gosh, January's almost over. It's pretty crazy. I'm still waiting to hear back from kind of the city of Calgary and just figuring out what's happening for the Valentine's Day Memorial March this year. It does look like we're going to have probably more of an online format, but I still think it's really important to be able to march. Just because there's something very symbolic about marching, walking in footsteps when we carry those red banners for the women that we have lost, for the people that we have lost. It's really impactful because it really carries that impact. It kind of shows that, you know, we don't forget. We remember, we carry them in our thoughts, we carry them in our hearts and our minds and our prayers, and then we physically carry them as well. And so I think it's really important that we do this every year. Even with Sisters in Spirit this year, there was a lot of worry about doing it simply because there was a lot of restrictions in place due to COVID, but we were able to do it and bring people together, and it was very special, and it's so meaningful for the community, the events that we do regularly every year. And so yes, we will be going ahead with it. It will just look a little bit different, but I will be sharing that event with updates probably tomorrow. So hi, Tansei. Welcome everybody. I just wanted to start in a good way by acknowledging the land upon which we stand, because that's always really important to know where you are, so you know where you're going. I live here in Mohkinstsis, but I am from Treaty 6 territory. I am from Muskeg Lake Cree Nation in Saskatchewan, which is in Treaty 6, but I have made Mohkinstsis, Calgary, Treaty 7 my home for so many years. And it's just such a beautiful place to be. It's a gathering place. It's a place of building community, of learning and growing, and I'm just so thankful to be where I am. And so I acknowledge the families that have been here for thousands upon thousands of generations. I acknowledge the Blackfoot of Siksika, Kainai, and Pagani. They have been really shaping and molding this land for far longer than anyone can even fathom. And I'm always just so humbled whenever there's more archaeological discoveries that predate what our what we actually thought. And so some of the sites in and around Mohkinstsis, they're over 15,000 years old. And so it goes to show that, you know, we have been on this land for thousands upon thousands of generations, and it's important to honor and respect that. And by doing a land acknowledgement and acknowledging those families, that's what you're acknowledging. You're acknowledging the history that has been steeped into this land for thousands of generations. I acknowledge the Tsutsuna from who are Sarsi Dene. It's beautiful, beautiful land out there, and I really miss picking my medicines out there. Since the development started, haven't really been able to. So I have friends and family out there, and it's just such a beautiful way of looking at the world. There's so many wonderful teachings and wonderful elders that come from out there, and so I'm thankful for those elders, and I'm thankful for those knowledge keepers that are really trying to share those elders that wisdom and those teachings, for it passes on, because I think it's really important that we need to pass those teachings on. We can't hold them close to our heart, because if something happens to us, then what's going to happen to the next generation? They're going to lose those teachings, so it's important to share. I also honor the Stoney Nakoda from Morley, which includes Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. I love going out there, and whenever I just need some time to think, just driving towards the mountains, there's something really, really powerful and really strong out there. And those nations have been there. They've gone through trials and tribulations. Half their families are down in the States, but they came up here to escape what was happening down in the States. And so they have that strong history and that strong connection, but so many different stories and so many wonderful elders who carry that knowledge. And I think it's so important that we learn how to connect with all of those elders, with all of those teachings, to be able to really have a fuller view of the world. Because if we only see one portion, we're missing so much. It's almost like staring at a beautiful masterpiece. If we're only looking at one part of it, we're going to miss everything else. And so we have to really dial it back, be humble, be able to be open, and to learn from every person that crosses our path. And we're also walking in the footsteps of Métis Region 3, which is why I proudly wear my Métis sash to act as that bridge between Indigenous and non-Indigenous culture. This sash was actually gifted to me through a wonderful Blackfoot elder, Kelly Good Eagle, and he is in my thoughts and my prayers. I was thinking about him a lot today, so I'm wearing that on his behalf. Also, I'm just really thankful to be where I'm at. My mom had surgery yesterday, but she's recovering, so I'm very thankful for that. And we've lost some really wonderful people over the last few days very suddenly. And I'm just sending love and appreciation and healing out to their families, because I think it's important to know that the community has you and supports you. And if anyone needs anything, just reach out, because I am there in a heartbeat. Maybe not driving, because my van has died a horrible death, but hopefully she'll be fixed in a couple days. But I wanted to welcome everyone in the circle by sharing the Cree welcome songs. So traditionally when we sing songs, we sing in rounds of 4, down to the 4 directions of the medicine wheel. But this song is a little different. We keep it in rounds of 3, and that's to keep the circle open and welcoming so everyone completes the circle today. Because in a circle, we're all connected. There's no beginning, there's no end. No one is greater or less than anyone else in the circle, just like in the hoop of life. Another reason we like to keep it open is because if you come in or leave, you have that ability to still be within that circle, whether you're just coming in late or having to leave early. It just gives people that permission to breathe, to come and go as they please, because it's not about being rigid, it's about being open. And so Mia Sin, which is the Cree welcome song, it honors everybody within our circle. It teaches us to honor people for who they are without judgment. It's not about comparing ourselves to others, because we could never be someone else, but it's really about appreciating and acknowledging, that beauty that we have within us, but the beauty that everyone else brings to the table. And also really about honoring that we need to work together to make the world a better place for all of our future generations. And it's when we come together at points of compromise that we actually see those changes happen on a larger level. And so Mia Sin, which is the Cree welcome song, is from the Natoha family from Sturgeon Lake. And I thank them very much for keeping this song alive and keeping this story alive and allowing so many people to be able to share it, because it's such a gift to be able to share the teachings behind that song and the song itself. And so Mia Sin, it doesn't just mean welcome, it also means beautiful. And I'm going to stand up to sing. Move my chair. Mia Sin, Mia Sin, ha semina, ha semina, e peta kote, iwa gomagan, hota, homa, kita skino, Mia Sin, Mia Sin, ha semina, ha semina, e peta kote, iwa gomagan, hota, homa, kita skino, Mia Sin, Mia Sin, ha semina, ha semina, e peta kote, iwa gomagan, ota, homa, kita skino. circle today, everybody. So today I wanted to, of course, smudge just to get us in the right space. And while I'm smudging, I'm really going to be sending a lot of love and support and appreciation and healing to the people who need it. It's been a really hard last week. Actually, it's been a really hard several months. And so when I smudge, I'm keeping those people in mind, and that's what the smudge is. It's really about, inviting those people in, asking for the things that you need in your life, and letting go of the things that you don't. And this is why you always feel so much better after you smudge. So no matter how stressed out I am, if I smudge, I'm like, I can breathe and I feel better and okay, it's not as bad as I thought. So I think it's really important. It puts things into perspective and it puts us back into our very being. It puts us back into our body. It calms our mind, lowers our blood pressure, which is amazing. It cleans the air around us, and it just connects us deeply with who we are at our core. And so it's really, really important to do this and keep it as kind of a regular practice. And I think it's really important to understand that Indigenous of Turtle Island, we're not the only ones that smudge. Actually, there are thousands of cultures that smudge around the world. Of course, all Indigenous cultures, because they recognize that those plants were there for a reason. And when we burn it, it does create this smoke to be able to purify and heal and ground us. And so in the Celtic tradition, they would usually burn different kinds of well, actually, they would burn wormwood, which is a type of sage. And there's other religions around the world that do the same thing. And everything from, as they use for incense or smudge pots, or even the Catholic Church when they're like bringing the smoke down the aisle. And so every culture uses it in some way, shape, or form. So it's really about finding your ancestors through those particular teachings. And so this is why it's not right or wrong, it's just different. It's about finding what calls to you and what you need in your life to be able to heal and to be able to be better in the community around you. And so that being said, I am going to grab some sage. So we're going to smudge with sage today. Because that is, in Cree, it's the women's medicine. So because I'm Cree, I tend to smudge with a lot of sage. This is why I'm constantly running out, even though I did a lot of sage picking this spring, summer, and fall. Apparently it wasn't enough because I had to ask help from the community, and I was really, really thankful that there was a few wonderful people that were able to gift me some sage, which was great. Buffalo sage in particular is what I love, love, love to smudge with. I have other kinds of sage, but buffalo sage is the one I usually love to smudge with. Oops. And just because I'm only smudging with sage today, I still lay out all of my medicines because it's important to honor the energy of all of those medicines and the teaching of all of those medicines. In the East, I have sweetgrass. Other people will have sweetgrass in different parts of their medicine wheel. And so, like I said, it's not right or wrong. It's just different. It's about finding what works for you. So I have sweetgrass in the East for my mind, for childhood, for new beginnings, for the morning, for grandfather son. It's a masculine energy and it's a power of fire. In the South, I have cedar, which is, it's our body medicine. I use it for pretty much everything. And it's really about honoring our body, honoring our connection to Mother Earth, honoring our connection to our adolescence, because that's when we learn more about ourselves. And this is how we understand what our place is in community. But it's really about acknowledging the connection that we have to the earth and how the earth teaches us. It's really about a reciprocal relationship, how we have to give something back before we take anything. So those are major teachings. And this is also why it's really great for pretty much anything. I drink a lot of cedar tea at least once a week just to, maintain my health, or if I'm starting to feel a little sick, I tend to up it to maybe one a day until I feel better. Sage in the West, that's that women's medicine. It's connected to the water, it's connected to Grandmother Moon, it's connected to our emotions and our adulthood. And then in the North, we have tobacco. This is tobacco that I was gifted. I always keep it wrapped. And then we also have Kansasa. So if we're in a ceremony where we have to take 4 medicines into our body, all 4 directions, we'll use Kansasa instead, because tobacco we can't actually take into our bodies. and I just actually finished picking some. Unfortunately, it's not quite right. So here in Wilkinston, it's been unseasonably warm, so the ground has not been able to freeze enough for the medicines to completely come out of the roots and go into the branches. So I think I'm going to have to wait a few more weeks before I actually can pick more, because it just wasn't quite ready yet. But the stuff that I did pick, I'm definitely going to use for some drumsticks. Awesome. So I have a little ball of sage. So there's no right or wrong way to smudge. It's whatever feels good to you. All 4 directions are in the smudge bowl. We have the bowl itself, which represents water. We have the medicine, so whatever you put into the bowl, it represents earth as soon as it goes in. When we light it on fire, it represents fire. And then the smoke represents air, which is our connection to Creator. So all 4 directions. I also take off my jewelry usually when I'm smudging. I felt very turquoise today, so it was really... I just love these earrings. They're so shiny and blingy. Just wanted to be sparkly today. And take out my hair thing. So this was actually gifted to me from my friend Jessie, and I just love it. I think it's so, so stunning. And I love how it curves because it just fits perfect. And I've had it for years. I was thinking about her today, so I should probably send her a message after this. Awesome. And so like I said, there's no right or wrong way to smudge. It's whatever feels good to you, whatever you know, resonates with you. You can do a short smudge, a long smudge. You can take your time and add more medicine as you go, but it's just whatever you need. I'm going to do a quick smudge today, if I could actually light it. One thing that you want to make sure of is that when you're lighting it, make sure you're lighting it with something natural, whether it be, you know, well, a match is made of wood, so this is why it's a little bit more natural, but you don't want to put like a butane lighter in there because it just takes away from the medicine. So even if you just light the tail end of, because I've got all of these little sage stems, you can light the end of it with a lighter and then light your smudge, but try and keep it as natural as possible. Awesome. So I'm going to just wash my hands in it, get rid of anything that I'm carrying, bring it over my body 4 times to honor the 4 directions in my body. Smudge my mind so I can think clearly and learn from every person that crosses my path. So I can be open-minded and never rigid with my thinking, because you never know when you're really going to learn something. Smudge my ears so I can be open to hear all of the messages that Creator sends me. To remind myself I have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so I can listen twice as much as I speak. But to be open to hear those messages is important. Smudge my nose so I can smell danger and cookies. I smudge my eyes so I can see all of the beauty in the world around me, all that Creator has made, but also so I can be open and my vision can be clear. I smudge my mouth so I speak true and kind words that are helpful and benefit mankind, that are truthful, helpful, and kind, and respectful. Those are important to have those words that way. Smudge my throat, because I'm very thankful for my voice this lifetime, so I can continue to give voice to the voiceless and honor the voice that Creator has gifted me. I smudge my lungs, so I breathe good, clean air, and out my asthma. Smudge my heart, so I can stay kind and compassionate, show unconditional love to all of those around me, but also just to make sure that I show compassion to myself. So whether it be my friends, my family, sometimes we treat everyone else around us better than we treat ourselves, and we don't have any energy left at the end of the day. So this is what self-care is all about. And smudging is a type of self-care. Smudge my stomach, so all of the food that I ate, that I will eat today, will nourish my body. I just had a really big dinner before I came down. I smudged my womanhood because I'm very thankful to be a woman and a mother in this time. I'm a 2-spirit woman, so I inhabit both worlds. But my body this lifetime is female, and I have given birth, so I'm thankful for that. I smudge my arms and my hands so I can do the good work that Creator's put me here to do. I smudge my shoulders and my back so I can carry all of the responsibilities that Creator has gifted me with grace and humility. And then I smudge my legs so I can walk this red road in a good way. And then I smudge my feet. So I stay grounded and connected to Mother Earth, treading lightly upon her and honoring her with every step. And if there's anywhere else in your body that you need a little extra love, so my hips are still super sore in spite of having 4 hip surgeries. They're still not quite right. So I get to finally see a specialist in a couple weeks, so that's exciting. So smudge those so they heal. Smudge my neck, because I've been sitting a little wonky. And then if there's anyone in your life that you need to send that healing, that love, that appreciation to, perhaps a family that is going through a lot, just hold them in your heart and smudge your heart and send them that love and appreciation. And then when you're all done, you can say hi or magwitch or merci or thank you or grazia or however you say thank you in your language. So I'm going to put my earrings back on. But today I actually had somebody request that I share the Dreamcatcher story. And so I'm going to share the Dreamcatcher story today, which is a little bit more in depth. And always when I teach Dreamcatcher making workshops, I think it's really important to be able to share this story so that you understand all aspects of a Dreamcatcher. And because when we look at the Dreamcatcher, it's probably the most appropriated object from Indigenous culture like ever. And most Dreamcatchers that you find are like made in China. Do not buy those. Go and find authentically Indigenous artists because they do incredible work. I make them. Autumn Whiteway makes incredible Dreamcatchers. There are several Indigenous artists that just make absolutely stunning Dreamcatchers, and they do it custom work. So it's something that's special and meaningful to you and made for you or whomever you're going to give it to. So it's really about supporting community and knowing where those things are coming from. Support local, yeah. So that being said, I'm going to share that. But before I do, I'm going to share the 4 Directions song because that has been in my head all day. It's also known as Wende Aho or the Cherokee Morning Song. And originally it was brought forward by Robbie Robertson and Ulali. And so they have a beautiful, beautiful version. Honestly, I love Ulali because they have the most incredible harmonies. Things that you listen, you're like, this might not work, but together it just works. And it's so incredibly empowering to be able to hear that. And I think it's important to celebrate a lot of different Indigenous artists. It's not about a competition, but it's about learning from each other and growing together and helping pave the way for each other. So this is the 4 Directions song, Cherokee Morning Song, Wende Aho. And yeah, it's really about, I knew it as the 4 Winds song when I'd learned it, but it's really about having the wind guide you and really about honoring all 4 directions that are around us, all 4 directions that are within us. So our mind, our heart, our physical body, and our spirit, that kind of fuels the whole thing, because truly that's what makes us a whole being. This is why holistic medicine should be practiced a lot more. This is Wende Aho. my drum over to the side and I'm going to share the Dreamcatcher story. So, the Dreamcatcher story, it's Anishinaabe, but it's also Lakota. So you'll hear some Anishinaabe and you'll hear some Lakota words in it. I wish I could learn a lot more of my language. Unfortunately, that was not shared with me growing up, but it's really important to be able to reclaim it, even if it's a word at a time, even if it's a phrase at a time, or even if it's a story at a time. It's important. And so, the Dreamcatcher story. A long time ago, before we had a lot of teachings, before we had a lot of ceremonies, there was a small tribe, a small nation, and there was this little boy in the nation, and he would have the most horrible nightmares. He would scream and cry all throughout the night, so much so that no one else in the village could sleep, no one like at all, because he would just keep everybody up. It was like the worst alarm clock ever. But because of this, everybody was just exhausted. But his screams were so intense and so incredibly loud that they actually scared animals away from miles and miles and miles. And so the hunters had to keep going out further and further and further to be able to get at least anything for the nation to eat. And there was, of course, vegetables, so the hunters-gatherers were doing, the gathering. But unfortunately, the plants also need time to sleep. And so the plants actually weren't growing. They were starting to shrivel up and die because they weren't getting any rest at night either. And the only plants, the only vegetables that were actually able to last were the tubers. So like the carrots and the beets and anything that grows underground, potatoes, things of that sort. But there's only so much of that you can like live on before it's just not enough. And so everyone in the village was just getting desperate and getting so tired of this little guy just crying all the time. And his Nokomis, his grandmother, would take him walking every day to try and just tire him out. So hopefully the further they would walk, maybe he would be able to sleep through the night. But of course, as soon as they would get back from their really long walks, she would tuck him in and he would go to sleep, and then he would scream and cry and keep everybody up in the village. And so one day, Nokomis packed up her grandson like she did every day, and they began walking. And they walked further and further and further. And I don't know about you, but if you don't sleep a lot and if you don't really eat very much, you get pretty hangry. So her grandson was a pretty hangry little kiddo. And as they were walking, they came into a clearing, and as they looked up in the morning sun, they saw this beautiful spider's web, and all of the dew was hanging like little jewels, like little gems, just sparkling in the sun, with this massive jeweled spider in the center. And Nokomis was like, wow, that's beautiful. But of course, the grandson, who was hangry, he wanted to kill it. He picked up his moccasin and he went to kill the spider. But Nokomis said, no, grandson, that's Ektome, and Ektome is a very sacred spider. You must leave it be. All life is precious. And so the spider, being so thankful that Nokomis saved her life, said, thank you, Nokomis, for saving my life. And Nokomis said, oh my gosh, a talking spider. No, I'm just kidding. That's not what she said. She said, you're very welcome. And thank you for your guidance in catching the bugs that, could mean to do us harm. And the spider said, Ektome said, Nokomis, because you've saved my life, I want to share with you many different teachings that will help your nation. I won't be the only one sharing teachings with you, but I have friends that would like to share with your nation as well. So tomorrow, Nokomis, come and see me. Tonight there will be a really big storm, and as you're walking on your path to come and see me again, you will find willow branches that have been shaken from trees. So pick up and gather those willow branches and bring them to me. And so Nokomis was a little confused by these instructions, but when a talking spider offers you things, you don't say no. So she said, of course, thank you, Ektome, for graciously saying that you would share these things with me. And so Nokomis continued to walk her grandson all the way home. And it was quite a long walk. She had never actually gone out that far before. And then she tucked in her grandson, hoping that the excitement of the day and just the difference of the day and how far they had walked would actually give him enough rest or give him enough activities that he could rest. And so she tucked him in and she started to fall asleep. And then he screamed and screamed and screamed and cried and cried and cried and woke everyone up. And so Nokomis was exhausted in the morning, but she knew she had to gather all of those beautiful branches from the storm last night. And so she woke her grandson up. Well, he didn't really sleep. So she packed him up and they started to walk along their path to go and visit Ektome. And along their path, Nokomis was gathering up all of these beautiful willow branches that had been shaken from the trees at night. She found them really bendy and stretchy. And as she brought them into the clearing, Ektome said, "Oh, it's wonderful to see you, grandmother." Nokomis, "I have a beautiful teaching, and I will show you how to weave all of those beautiful willow branches into a circle, into a hoop." And so as she was teaching her how to weave a hoop, a circle, she explained that the circle is the most sacred of all of the shapes. We are in the circle of life, and everything travels in a circle. It reminds us that we are all connected to each other within that circle. The animals and the plants, we all have different things to learn from each other, but we are all within that circle. If the circle is strong, it is not broken. So we must always keep that circle strong by honoring each other, the plants, the animals, and each other's voices in the circle. It reminds us that the circle is how the sun and the moon travel together. It is how our earth spins. It is how we get the seasons. And every aspect of that circle is important. Nokomis was very thankful for these teachings and very humbled. And she saw that beautiful ring that she had made out of this wonderful willow branches and weaving them all together. She was very thankful for Ektome for teaching her about the circle. And Ektome said, "Tomorrow, Nokomis, you will come and see me again. But on your way, I want you to take a long path. I'd like you to walk through the forest. I'd like you to walk along the ocean and along the riverbed. And as you do, you will find beautiful rocks and gems and stones that catch your eye. And as you're doing this, as you're picking up these little teeny tiny rocks and gems and stones that you may have missed before, they will tell you a story. They will hold significance, whether that be of a person, of a time, of a different teaching that you remember. Those will come through you as you were picking up those stones, as those gifts." Nokomis was very thankful, and of course she went home with her grandson. And they had walked super, super far, and so she was hoping that maybe today he might just be exhausted enough to sleep at least semi-solidly. And so she tucked him in again, and she started to go to sleep herself. And then her grandson screamed and screamed and screamed and cried and cried and cried all night, keeping everyone awake. And Nokomis, who was just exhausted, did the same thing that she did every morning. She woke up, she stretched, she packed her grandson up, getting him nice and clean and dressed, and then they began to walk. As they began to walk along the path, they started to look down and notice these teeny tiny glimmers of light, these beautiful stones that Nokomis wouldn't have noticed had she not been looking down. And she was just amazed at all of the gifts that were at her feet. As she picked them up, she remembered people in her life. She remembered moments. She remembered times that she had laughed. She'd remembered times that she had cried as she picked up all of these little stones. And she continued to walk. Then they walked down the riverbed. As they did, they found more little rocks and gems and stones. As they continued to walk down towards the ocean, and they walked along the ocean, they found tiny shells and more stones of different colors, and each one reminded her of a time, or a person, or a place, and she was thankful for these memories. And by the time they had walked all the way back to Ektome, her hands were full of all of these beautiful gifts that were at her feet. And Nokomis showed Ektome the beautiful stones. Ektome said, "Those are all memories. They are memories of people, of times, of things that have gone past, but also things that we are hoping for, our hopes for the future." And Ektome gave Nokomis a very, very, very long strand of silk and began to show Nokomis how to weave all of those rocks and gems and stones into the hoop. She started on the side, and it started to go more towards the center in a spiral. And as she did, Nokomis remembered all of those people, all of those teachings, all of those things. in all of those moments. As she stitched them in, they solidified that along that path for her. And then the spider Ektome explained that we are a single strand in the web of life, but we touch so many different people, so many different points, and these are gifts to us. Whether they be good experiences or bad experiences, they give us the strength that we need. And when we weave the web, it reminds us that even if we miss one part, we're missing a piece of ourselves. We're missing that strength and those teachings that we need within our own life. Nokomis was very humbled for these beautiful teachings, and she held up that beautiful gift that she'd been making, and it did look so much like that spider's web, but it held so much significance now. Nokomis said thank you to Ektome, and asked Ektome, well, what would you like me to bring tomorrow? And Ektome explained to Nokomis, well, tomorrow you will rise before the sun, and I want you to walk to the east towards the rising sun, and you will have a friend of mine greet you there. He has many, many wonderful teachings to share with you. And then, as the sun travels, you will follow it to the south. As the sun is at its highest, another one of my friends will visit you. And then, as the sun is setting, head to the west, and you will find another friend waiting for you in the west with the setting sun. But the following day, Nokomis, you will go to the north, and there will be another friend with another gift for you, and many teachings. And then after all of those gifts have been received, you'll come back and see me, and I'll show you what to do with them. Nokomis was very thankful, very humbled for these teachings. And so she walked back with her grandson, who was just exhausted. So exhausted he could barely walk, so she had to drag him most of the way, or carry him most of the way. By the time they got back to the village, she was exhausted, but she felt very full of knowledge and wisdom. She tucked her grandson in that night, hoping that all that they'd experienced that day and the length of their walk would hopefully give him some semblance of peace and some semblance of sleep. So she tucked him in, and she waited, and she started to fall asleep. And then he screamed and screamed and screamed and cried and cried and cried and kept everybody up in the village. So the next morning, before the sun had even crested, she packed up her grandson very, very quietly, and they tiptoed out of the village towards the rising sun. As they headed to the east, and the sunset was absolutely beautiful unfolding in front of her, she heard a very quiet sound at first. And as she looked up, she saw a beautiful hawk circling overhead, and it came lower and lower and lower until finally it landed in front of her in a tree and said, Nokomis, I have been waiting so long for you. I have so many wonderful teachings for you. Teachings of fire, teachings of our childhood, teachings that we will share with the men. And so Nokomis listened intently for several hours until she understood all of those teachings. As she did, she was reminded of the people in her nation that were meant to keep those teachings and carry those teachings. She was reminded of the different stones and shells that she had woven into the web and the people that were meant to carry those teachings. She was very, very thankful and humbled to that beautiful hawk for sharing those teachings. And then, as the hawk soared off, he dropped a single feather. As it spun on the breeze, Nokomis looked up and grabbed it and held it to her heart with so much thanks in her heart for all that she had learned and all that she would share with her nation. And her and her grandson started to walk to the south. And as they walked to the south, the sun got higher and higher and higher into the sky until it was directly above them. And Nokomis said, well, I suppose we should have lunch. And so they laid out a blanket under the biggest tree they could find, this huge, huge cedar tree. And as they were eating, they heard laughter, and they were looking around. What is that sound? And then they heard it again. And as they looked up, there was a beautiful, beautiful raven who was, of course, laughing and joking around. He popped down and hopped towards them and said, Nokomis, I've been waiting for you. I have so many wonderful teachings for you. Teachings about the beautiful earth, from all of the plants, ways to listen to the plants, ways to make medicines, ways to talk to the animals and how we can use them. And so Nokomis listened intently to all of the wonderful teachings that the raven was sharing. As she learned how to make different things, how to use different things, and how to communicate with different things, she was so thankful and humbled for all of the information. And then the raven picked out a feather and gifted it to Nokomis. Nokomis thanked the raven for this feather and for all of the teachings and held it to her heart. And then the raven said, "Now I must go, and so must you." And so the raven flew off. Nokomis and her grandson wrapped up the blanket and they began walking along their path to the west, following the sun as it was setting and getting dark. As the sun was setting and getting dark, the beautiful full moon started rising and lit up their path. As it darkened, it was still almost as light as daylight in the winter. And so they continued to walk into a clearing of trees. And in this clearing of trees, Nokomis was wondering who was going to meet her here. And then she heard a very soft woo-hoo, woo-hoo. As she looked up, she saw that beautiful snowy owl in the tree in front of her. And without a sound, the snowy owl swooped down in front of her and landed and said, "Nokomis, I have so many wonderful teachings to share with you. Teachings of the women's medicine, teachings of our heart medicine, teachings of the moon and the waters." Nokomis listened intently for many hours. It had been a long day, but she was so full of wonderful teachings. She was thankful and humbled that the owl had shared these wonderful teachings with her, and she knew exactly who was meant to carry those teachings. And then the owl, without a sound, took off and dropped a single feather. As it spun on the breeze, Nokomis reached up, grabbed it, and held it to her heart. She was very thankful and humbled for all of the teachings. She thanked the owl as it soared silently out of sight. And then she packed up her grandson for 3 gifts, and they made their way back to their village. And as they did, they got there, and everyone was wondering how how long they had been gone and why they'd traveled so far. And Nokomis said, "I will share tomorrow." She tucked her grandson in, hoping that today, maybe, just maybe, he would sleep through the night. But as sure as she tucked him in, he screamed and screamed and screamed and cried and cried and cried, and he did not sleep all night, keeping everyone awake. Next morning, Nokomis packed up her grandson, remembering what Ektome said about heading north, and together they headed north towards the mountains. Up in the mountains, it was so crisp and so clear, and as Nokomis looked up, she saw a tiny speck floating above her. And as the speck grew closer and closer and closer, she heard an unmistakable and she knew it was the eagle. And the eagle soared down and said, "Nokomis, I am so thankful that you are here. I have so many different teachings to share with you." And so she listened intently as the eagle explained the importance of ceremony, the importance of certain dances, and how all of the people in her nation were meant to carry different teachings, different dances, different ceremonies. He shared with her the pipe. He shared with her the yuwipi, or shaking tent ceremonies, and he shared with her many, many other ceremonies as well. Many of the teachings of the elders, and many of the stories that were meant to be shared in a good way. And Nokomis was so overcome with joy for all of these beautiful teachings. And then, before the eagle had taken off, he had said, "Nokomis, this is a very special teaching and gift." He pulled one of his own feathers and gifted it to Nokomis. He said, "Nokomis, this feather is a sacred feather. Eagle feathers represent all of the accomplishments. They represent that we're standing forward and standing tall and taking good care of our future generations. It's the accomplishments that we get for sharing these teachings, but going on journeys together. When a dancer is dancing with an eagle feather, it is on top of our head to remind us to connect deeply with Creator in all of those teachings. And it is important that this is just for us. It is not for public, but for only ceremony." Nokomis was very thankful and humbled for this gift. She held it to her heart, and she thanked that beautiful, beautiful eagle as it soared away. Nokomis then took all of these gifts that those 4 friends had given her and started to make her way back to Ektome. As she arrived in the clearing, and Ektome was there, Ektome said, "Those gifts are for you to weave into this." And so she held up that beautiful hoop that she made with the wonderful webbing that she had created. And Ektome showed her how to hang those feathers. The eagle, or sorry, not the eagle feather, the hawk feather in the east, the grounding feather of the raven in the south, and that wise feather in the west for the owl. And Nokomis was about to put that eagle feather at the top, and the spider explained, Ektome explained, that that is your feather, that is your accomplishments, and that is your gift to your nation. Nokomis held up this beautiful thing that she had created, and she was wondering, what is this? And Ektome explained, this is the Dreamcatcher. It embodies all of the teachings of the Anishinaabe people. It is our gift to you. It is our gift about learning, about understanding our path, where we're going, and how we can get there, but also honoring our future generations. When we have a Dreamcatcher, it's a form of protection. When we put it over our cradle board at night, or above our bed at night, all of those dreams will go through the webbing. Any of those negative dreams, those bad dreams, any of that bad energy, well, those energies are greedy. And so they will see those beautiful gems and rocks and stones, those beautiful gifts, and they will try and hold on to them. They won't let them go. They remind us that to be able to move forward, sometimes we have to let things go. But they will get tangled in the netting, in the webbing, like a spider catches its prey in a web. Because all of those glistening, beautiful rocks and stones and gems, those gifts, they look like dew on the spider's web. But all of the good dreams that will pass through the netting will drip down the feathers and down to the dreamer below. And any of them that do not make it up down that night will soar on the bird's wings up to Creator to maintain those good dreams and those good intentions. But all of those negative dreams will be burnt away like dew on a spider's web in the morning. Nokomis was very thankful for these teachings, and she packed her grandson up and packed those beautiful Dreamcatcher that she had created up, and she began to walk to her village, thanking Ektome along her path. And as she got back to her village, she shared all of the teachings and all of the stories and all of the ceremonies with everyone who needed to carry them in her nation. She shared the wonderful stories of that all of the animals that had helped her along her path. And then, that night, she took that beautiful Dreamcatcher and she hung it above her grandson's cradleboard, above his bed. And then she tucked him in, anticipating that she wouldn't sleep another night. But that night, he went to sleep. And he slept so soundly. No one had ever heard that type of silence before. Never in that stillness before. That was the stillness of spirit, of being full of spirit. Everyone in the nation, everyone in the village slept the same way. So silently, so still. The plants had never heard this kind of stillness before, this kind of spirit before. And so they started to lean in to listen. And as they did, they grew into the village. The animals had never heard that kind of stillness before. And so all of the animals who had run away for miles and miles started coming back into the village and creeping, trying to figure out what this silence was, what the stillness was. And then as everyone woke up in the morning and poked their heads out, they saw just an abundance of animals and fruits and vegetables that had grown overnight. It was a miracle. But they remembered the teachings that the raven had given them, and they only took what they needed. They asked permission, and they were thankful for all of the things that they had taken, and they always gave something back in return. They had a beautiful feast that night, and that wonderful little boy did not have any more nightmares from that point on. But he did become one of the greatest leaders the Anishinaabe had ever seen. And that is the story of the Dreamcatcher. And so that being said, I'm now going to share the Creator song, just because it's been in my head. I shared it yesterday with a group, and I just really love this song because it's such an impactful song of my family. But it teaches us that everything in nature is there to learn from, to grow from, to remember that we have a relationship with everything in nature and with each other. To maintain those relationships and to maintain that circle and to make it strong, we have to be able to respect everything within it. Because if something goes away in that circle, someone else is going to be able to feel that. And so it's really about everyone being sacred, about how we share that sacred breath together. And so this is the Cree Creator Song. I should have probably had a drink before I started to sing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the beautiful drum I have behind me. And so this, again, this is the drum that was painted by Sam Spaghetti. Sorry, I was going to show my little raffle board, but all of the post-it notes started falling, so it looks like it's just snowed post-it notes all over my floor right now, but I will have that board done and up, then I'll take some pictures of it. And I figured out technology things. Drum raffle tickets, yay! So you can win this beautiful, beautiful drum, and it's painted by Sam Spaghetti. He just does amazing, amazing work. And of course the drum itself was made by myself. This is sailor style, so it's really about, don't procrastinate. It's really about setting goals and honoring the path that you're on and knowing that you should trust your footing, you should trust where you're going and how you get there, but also to know those steps that are going to get you where you need to go. And so I would typically use this for a sweat, because I'd actually brought into several sweats with me, just because it is so thick. And so outside it sounds pretty high pitched, but within the sweat it sounded incredible. It always sounds incredible in a sweat. And so yeah, this is beautiful, beautiful eagle drum, and I find it just incredible how Sam just brings the spirit of the drum out into paint. Even in the background here, I'm not sure if you can see it, but it looks like there's an eagle behind the eagle, which is a natural part of the drum. Just beautiful, just phenomenal. The money that we are raising, it is going to... I'm going where? Okay. It is going to be split 3 ways. Myself, so I can make another drum. Sam, of course, for his paint. And then that last bit is going to be going to the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women events that are coming up. Sisters in Spirit, of course, that happens every year. But the Valentine's Day Memorial March, which may or may not look differently this year, but we'll see it, we'll know what's happening, and we'll kind of go from there. I'll definitely have more updates as they become available, and I'm hoping that it goes really, really well. I do miss gathering in big groups, but of course we're probably not going to be able to do that in kind of like an inside capacity, but we might be able to do it outside. So this is why I'm going to talk to the city of Calgary and see what we can do. But yeah, so that's that wonderful drum. I'm going to share one more song before we go. And this song, the travel song. Whoa, that was weird. So I'm going to sing the travel song before we head out. And this is just so everyone has a wonderful week. I'm going to go over here. And, I know that the path has been quite hard for a lot of people lately, but this is just so everybody makes it home safe, to remind us that the journey is half the battle, but also home is where we make it. Home is where we make community and create that community. And so this is the travel song, which I learned from my elder Sharon Brew Turner, and then it kind of came back full circle with my friend Yolanda, and I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for that. So this is the travel song. Awesome. Well, Chimagwich, everybody, thank you so much for joining me again this week. Yeah, and if you have any questions, my information is there, or you can just reach out by PM on Twitter, or actually I don't check my Twitter very much. Don't go on Twitter, but on Facebook, Instagram, wherever. I'm going to post another picture of the drum with my repaired board. I just need better. I think I need better post-it notes. We'll see. But have a wonderful week. Again, sending love and appreciation. There was a huge loss in our community this week, and I think it's really important to be able to share our energy and our healing with that family, with the few families that have suffered this week. So hi everybody. Thank you so much. Chimagwich, and we will see you next week. Bye.